lay the groundwork with this.
And here we go, President Obama and Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Mr. President Barack Obama, I wish to warmly welcome you and the accompanying delegation in Palestine. Mr. President, during your visit to our country, you will meet a people proud of their history, heritage, culture, and symbols. A young, creative, and entrepreneurial people who have made the miracle and arose from the calamities of the Nakba and continue the path of their ancestors, extending since the ancient times over this land, their land. A people who adhere to their rights and are in harmony and keep abreast with the realities of the age, its language and methods. A people who build the institutions of the State of Palestine, giving an exemplary model despite all hardships and hurdles. The people of Palestine, Mr. President, who receive you today, aspire to attain their simplest rights, the right to freedom, independence, and peace, and look forward to that day to come quickly, in which they exercise normal and natural life over the land of the State of Palestine, the independent State of Palestine, along the borders of the 4th of June 1967, with Jerusalem, the Lady of the Cities, as its capital, alongside the State of Israel. We, Mr. President, believe that peace is necessary and inevitable, and we also believe that it is possible. We believe that peacemaking, and as much as it requires political courage, also requires an expression of good faith, a recognition of people's rights, respect for the other, and dissemination of a culture of peace and the commitment to international legitimacy and its resolutions. Certainly, peace shall not be made through violence, occupation, walls, settlements, arrests, siege, and denial of refugee rights. We are extremely in pleasure to receive you today in our country. Our people share with the American people and with you personally the belief in the values and principles of freedom, equality, justice, and respect for human rights. And we, together with the peoples of the world, are partners in the pursuit to achieve a just peace that ends occupation and war and achieves security, stability, and prosperity to all the peoples of our region. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have conducted a good and useful round of talks with His Excellency President Obama. It was an opportunity to focus on our side, on the risks and the disastrous risks that the continuation of settlement activity represent on this two-state solution, and over the need to release prisoners. I asserted to His Excellency the President that Palestine has taken long and additional steps for the sake of making peace. I hereby assert again that we are ready to implement all our commitments and obligations, and to respect the signed agreements and the international legitimacy resolutions in order to provide for the requirements of launching the peace process and achieving the two-state solutions, Palestine and Israel. We are also serious in ending the division and achieve the Palestinian reconciliation, which constitutes an additional source of power for us to continue our march towards making peace, security, and stability in the region. I have renewed confidence that the United States, represented by His Excellency President Obama, and Mr. John Kerry shall intensify its efforts to remove the obstacles ahead of the efforts to achieve a just peace, which the peoples of the region have long awaited. Here, I wish to thank the President for his continuous confirmation of the U.S. commitment to provide support to the Palestinian people, and to thank him and his administration for the support that has been provided during the past years, various forms of support to the Palestinian Treasury, to development projects, and to the UNRWA. Mr. President, once again, you are welcome in Palestine. Thank you.
Marhaba. Thank you, President Abbas, for your generous words and for welcoming me to Ramallah. I was last here 5 years ago, and it's a pleasure to be back, to see the progress that's happened since my last visit, but also to bear witness to the enduring challenges to peace and security that so many Palestinians seek. I've returned to the West Bank because the United States is deeply committed to the creation of an independent and sovereign state of Palestine. The Palestinian people deserve an end to occupation and the daily indignities that come with it. Palestinians deserve to move and travel freely and to feel secure in their communities. Like people everywhere, Palestinians deserve a future of hope, that their rights will be respected, that tomorrow will be better than today, and that they can give their children a life of dignity and opportunity. Put simply, Palestinians deserve a state of their own. I want to commend President Abbas and his Prime Minister Salam Fayyad for the progress that they've made in building the institutions of a Palestinian state. And the United States is a proud partner in these efforts as the single largest donor of assistance that improves the lives of Palestinians both in the West Bank and Gaza. As your partner, we salute your achievements and we mourn your losses. We offer condolences in particular over the loss of your fellow Palestinians last weekend in the tragic accident in Jordan. Now, Ramallah is a very different city than the one I visited 5 years ago. There's new construction, there's new businesses, new startups, including many high-tech companies connecting Palestinians to the global economy. The Palestinian Authority is more efficient and more transparent. There are new efforts to combat corruption so entrepreneurs and development can expand. Palestinian security forces are stronger and more professional, serving communities like Bethlehem, where President Abbas and I will visit the Church of the Nativity tomorrow. Moreover, this progress has been achieved under some extremely challenging circumstances. So I want to pay tribute to President Abbas and Prime Minister Fayyad for their courage, for their tenacity, and for their commitment to building the institutions upon which a lasting peace and security will depend. I would point out that all this stands in stark contrast to the misery and repression that so many Palestinians continue to confront in Gaza. Because Hamas refuses to renounce violence, because Hamas cares more about enforcing its own rigid dogmas than allowing Palestinians to live freely, and because too often it focuses on tearing Israel down rather than building Palestine up. And we saw the continuing threat from Gaza again overnight with the rockets that targeted Sderot. We condemn this violation of the important ceasefire that protects both Israelis and Palestinians, a violation that Hamas has a responsibility to prevent. Now, here in the West Bank, I realize that this continues to be a difficult time for the Palestinian Authority financially. So I'm pleased that in recent weeks the United States has been able to provide additional assistance to help the Palestinian Authority bolster its finances. Projects through USAID will help strengthen governance, rule of law, economic development, education, and health. We consider these to be investments in a future Palestinian state, investments in peace, which is in all of our interests. And more broadly, in our discussions today, I reaffirm to President Abbas that the United States remains committed to realizing the vision of two states, which is in the interests of the Palestinian people and also in the national security interests of Israel, the United States, and the world. We seek an independent, viable, and contiguous Palestinian state as the homeland of the Palestinian people, alongside the Jewish state of Israel. Two nations enjoying self-determination, security, and peace. And as I've said many times, the only way to achieve that goal is through direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians themselves. There is no shortcut to a sustainable solution. In our discussion with President Abbas, I heard him speak eloquently about the difficult issues that cannot be ignored. Among them, problems caused by continued settlement activity, the plight of Palestinian prisoners, and access to holy sites in Jerusalem. I understand that the status quo isn't really a status quo because the situation on the ground continues to evolve in a direction that makes it harder to reach a two-state solution. And I know that the Palestinian people are deeply frustrated. So one of my main messages today, the same message I'm conveying in Israel, is that we cannot give up. We cannot give up on the search for peace, no matter how hard it is. As I said with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, we will continue to look for steps that both Israelis and Palestinians can take to build the trust and the confidence upon which lasting peace will depend. And I very much appreciate hearing President Abbas's ideas on what those steps could be. I want both sides to know that as difficult as the current situation is, my administration is committed to doing our part. And I know that Secretary of State John Kerry intends to spend significant time, effort, and energy in trying to bring about a closing of the gap between the parties. We cannot give up on the search for peace. Too much is at stake. And if we're going to succeed, part of what we're going to have to do is to get out of some of the formulas and habits that have blocked progress for so long. Both sides are going to have to think anew. Those of us in the United States are going to have to think anew. But I'm confident that we can arrive at our destination to advance the vision of two nations, two neighbors, at peace, Israel and Palestine. If given the chance, one thing that I'm very certain of is that the Palestinians have the talent, the drive, and the courage to succeed in their own state. I think of the villages that hold peaceful protests because they understand the moral force of nonviolence. I think of the importance that Palestinian families place on education. I think of the entrepreneurs determined to create something new, like the young Palestinian woman I met at the Entrepreneurship Summit that I hosted, who wants to build recreation centers for Palestinian youth. I think of the aspirations that so many young Palestinians have for their future, which is why I'm looking forward to visiting with some of them right after we conclude this press conference. That's why we can't give up. Because of young Palestinians and young Israelis who deserve a better future than one that is continually defined by conflict. Whenever I meet these young people, whether they're Palestinian or Israeli, I'm reminded of my own daughters, and I know what hopes and aspirations I have for them. And those of us in the United States understand that change takes time, but it is also possible, because there was a time when my daughters could not expect to have the same opportunities in their own country as somebody else's daughters. What's true in the United States can be true here as well. We can make those changes, but we're going to have to be determined, we're going to have courage, we're going to have to be willing to break out of the old habits, the old arguments, to reach for that new place, that new world. And I want all the people here and throughout the region to know that you will have the President of the United States and an administration that is committed to achieving that goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Obama. Thank you, President Abbas.